Sixers. This team did it.
Well, first of all, we did know this because we saw what they did against a Milwaukee team that's incredibly athletic and formidable defensively because of their length and size. That's number one. Number two, we knew that and still picked the Sixers. And the reason why we picked the Sixers, it wasn't just about the fact that, again, they have talent. It's because of Boston being on demand. We know Rozier could play. We know Marcus Smart could play. We know Al Horford could play. I talked yesterday about how Horford could pull you away from the basket, and that was going to be problematic for Embiid or anybody who was guarding him because he could make perimeter shots. We get all of that. But in the end, what it comes down to is that no matter what kind of trouble they cause you defensively, offensively, there is no excuse for them to look the way that they look. That is an indictment against the 76ers defense. They did not show up last night. They just didn't.
I agree about the defense. The defense was an issue of effort. Maybe they were feeling a little, fat and satisfied because they have been so excellent for so long, although, as I've mentioned, usually not against excellent competition. This is a step up for the Sixers. So I agree about the defensive effort, but offensively, Stephen A., even when they weren't getting chased off the line, later in the game where their offense found some open shots, they were missing them in a way that you could tell they're just out of sync, even when they were wide open. You knew that's not going in. Even almost before he shot it, that's not going in. The ball wasn't delivered on a guy's steps, on time, in a position that was – everything was just a little bit off. That's rust, man. That happens. Whether or not that's an excuse, it's an explanation. A team sits for 6 days. The other one is active. Yeah, that's what happens.
And that's why you usually know that's going to happen, which is why you got to amp things up defensively, which they didn't do. And it also didn't help that Ben Simmons had more turnovers than field goals. He had 7 turnovers and 6 field goals for the day. That's just unacceptable. That something like that simply cannot happen against a Boston Celtics team. Clearly, Brad Stevens is the best young coach in basketball, one of the best coaches in basketball. Clearly, we're going to be talking about the Boston Celtics the way that we've talked about the Spurs for the last decade plus. We get all of that. But in the end, if you don't have Kyrie and you don't have Jaylen Brown, you can't come in there and let Boston's offense look like that. That's the point. Rust. Listen, when you're playing the game of basketball, if you are rusty, that's why defense matters so much, because rust rarely affects defense. It affects you offensively, but you make up for it on the defensive end of the floor because of your level of tenacity. You've got to go after it. You've got to make sure you're willing to shut them down. Philly did not do that last night.
Max, last word here.
You hear what Embiid said after the game, though. Of course. You hear what Embiid said after the game, though. Embiid, this is why Sixers fans can maybe not rest easy, but be confident. Because your best player and one of your 2 franchise cornerstones, Embiid, takes responsibility after the game, says rust isn't an excuse, they have to be ready, points to himself first as the defense, as the anchor on defense, say he failed to deliver, Sixers are going to be all right.
Yeah, he said all the right things. The Sixers shot under 20% from three-point range, snapped their 11-game winning streak with Embiid in games that he's played. Let's stay in the East, gentlemen. The Cavs are in action tonight against a team they knocked off during their past 2 playoff runs. LeBron James has won 6 straight games against the Raptors in the postseason, and Toronto is 2-12 all-time in game ones. But this year, Stephen A., on paper, Toronto looks like the better team. So what must these Cavs do to win this series?
They got to make perimeter shots. That's what they got to do. They got to make perimeter shots, and they have to defend. Those are the 2 biggest things that they have to do. And you can pick whichever order of importance that you want. The reason I say that is because of this. Watching, and Max, let me be very clear. The Toronto Raptors are a better team. From top to bottom, they're constructed better. They're made better, okay? I'm not denying that. What I'm going on is the fact that when these guys in the past have run into LeBron James, he has been their kryptonite. That's the issue that I think is going to be challenged for them. Not just psychological, but beyond. Again, you might blow them out a game or 2 or whatever the case may be. That kind of stuff happens in a playoff series. But when the offense of the Cleveland Cavaliers is clicking, that unleashes LeBron even more. And sometimes a potent offense is your best defense. And what I'm saying against the Raptors is that if LeBron can get perimeter help from a Korver, from a J.R. Smith, from a Kevin Love, meaning 2 of those 3 joining LeBron each game, if that happens, then Cleveland still wins this series because LeBron will have them reeling, and they won't be the same bunch that they've been throughout the regular season. But if they're struggling offensively, Toronto is going to find a way to get some points. They're going to get to the hole. They're going to be able to score and what have you. If their defense doesn't show up, believe it or not, they could still overcome that if their offense is potent. If their offense isn't potent, they can't overcome anything. And that's the difference in this series. Whether it's 2 of the 3, each game, 2 of the 3, J.R., K-Love, Kyle Korver, 2 of the 3 have to show up hitting perimeter shots to unleash LeBron even more against this long, athletic, big Toronto Raptors squad. You don't do that because you ain't scoring on them on the inside like that, other than the open court, because Ibaka and Valanciunas is going to be in the post in a half-court setting. If you don't run up and down the court and you don't hit perimeter shots, you are not winning this series.
Well, they're not winning this series, but you gave a perfectly good answer. That is the right X's and O's answer, really. How are they going to win? They're going to have to hit perimeter shots, not a couple of them. They're going to have to be lights out. They're going to have to be lights out from the perimeter. But, Stephen A., there's a better answer. How do the Cavs win this series? Get a better roster. The roster's not good enough. That's the bottom line. When they traded Kyrie Irving, since they got back, since they got back, that's because they're not going to win. Since they got back Isaiah Thomas, you're thinking, oh, is that an all-star Isaiah Thomas? No, it was an injured hip Isaiah Thomas. Crowder and some others didn't perform, even though Crowder's better than the players they got back in return after all those trades. And he was supposed to be the second-best player only in what they got for Kyrie Irving. Point is, the roster's not good enough. This is why I didn't pick the Cavs to get out of the East. This is why I've been saying all along, for, months now, the Raptors would beat the Cavs. Now, I know why people don't believe in the Raptors. Stephen A., they don't believe in the Raptors because they look at the roster and they go, talent? They're not the Celtics or the Sixers, right? But the Celtics and the Sixers will be in their full glory and full bloom next year. They're not the Cavs. They don't have anyone like LeBron. That's true, but that team was better last year. The Raptors are like a good prize fighter, like a real good contender, but he's peaking right now. And the Cavs are not. The Cavs are kind of has-beens right now. I mean, like, you look at the roster, Stephen A., they need to hit perimeter shots. No kidding, but they have to hit every perimeter shot. They just don't have enough talent on the team. They're not good defensively, and I'll go with you on sometimes the offense is the best defense, and if LeBron's creating and kicking out and everyone's getting open shots on the perimeter, and they can win, if every single one of those shots fall. Like, they have to have an absurd shooting nights to beat a team as good on both ends and as deep as the Raptors. In terms of the psychological whammy that LeBron has enjoyed over Toronto, yeah, if this is the second time they've ever linked up something like that, okay. But Toronto has been through this before. I believe they've learned. They're a better team than they've ever been this year. And new roster, Stephen A., the Cavs just don't have enough. They just don't have it.
Well, listen, it looks that way. I'm in no position to refute what you're saying in that regard. I'm just not going to jump off the ship just yet. Because again, what has my argument been from day one? LeBron's their kryptonite. I have seen teams in NBA history who collectively were better, but they ran into one or two guys that just had their number. And they were so forceful and they intimidated them so much that they wilted beneath the pressure. Now, one would argue that the Toronto Raptors are not that team this year, that they're better. I'm saying I have to see it to believe it. That's what I'm saying. Because LeBron is LeBron. And going up against them, obviously 1-on-5 can't get it done. But if you find a way, for example, like look at what Tyronn Lue did in Game 7. Throwing a Tristan Thompson in there. Now, Tristan Thompson, not a big name this year, has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for him until Game 7. And then suddenly it's 15 points and 10 rebounds and a key block with under 2 minutes left in the game or what have you. These are the kind of things.
Thompson
if you can get that kind of effort from guys like that in a series like this, then to me, Cleveland has a chance. Now, if you're going up against a Houston or you're going up against a Golden State, that's entirely different because they're long-range snipers and they just drop bombs on you from three-point range all over the place, okay? But that's not Toronto. Yes, they can hit threes, but that's not their MO. They rebound, they bang, they get physical, they drive into the lane, they shoot high percentage shots. They do all of these different things. And so to me, you're basically setting the stage for the Tristan Thompsons of the world, the Kevin Loves of the world, and others to make a contribution that we would not expect them to make against a team that doesn't rely on that level of physicality in order to beat you. I think a key in this series, Mac, could be Fred VanVleet, because he's the third perimeter shooter that helps them spread the floor. And Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan were telling me about that in the Wizards series when they had lost Game 4. I said they were completely unconcerned, Max, just sitting there. I mean, if they had some cheese doodles or whatever, they'd have sat back, reclining, kicking their feet up, eating those joints while they were talking to me, because that's how unconcerned they were. And,
by the way,
and I said to them, why? And they pointed.
That's why I never got off Toronto, Stephen A.
Yeah, they said if we have him, Stephen A,
and those guys off the bench, that second unit.
We'll see. We'll see.
That second unit in Toronto is real. As I said, they're beating the brakes off of teams with that second unit. And Stephen A., yesterday I said, if this was a best of 9 or 11 maybe, but LeBron, because it took him 7 games to close out Indiana. I was joking, of course. In fact, the longer the series goes, the worse it is for LeBron, who must be exhausted. He admitted to exhaustion after the Indiana series, averaged 41 minutes a game, wasn't getting a contribution really from anybody else. He had to do the whole thing himself, and now he has to do it against the team designed to grind you down. With a bench, they just keep throwing guys at you. They keep coming. If it was a one-and-done situation, they'd have a shot. They ain't beaten Toronto 4 out of 7.
All right, the Cavs went 2-1 versus the Raptors this season, winning both games in March. The last time LeBron was a series underdog before the NBA Finals, the 2008 conference semis, when they lost to the Celtics. Steph Curry, meanwhile, certainly isn't, and he's expected to make his Warriors return tonight at Oracle. So does that take all the pressure off Kevin Durant in these playoffs? No pressure, no diamonds. And TB12 knows all about that. He's asked about how much he's appreciated by the Patriots. Well, find out why another Patriot shouldn't be happy with his answer. First Take, just getting started.